It's the year 2000. You're a grandmother living in Sarasota, Florida, and you divide your time between Sudoku and making sure alligators don't devour your grandchildren. But lately, you're haunted by something you can't explain. A giant foul-smelling creature has been trespassing on your swampy property and burgling your apples. Pop quiz hotshot, what do you do? If you answered, send an anonymous letter and a couple of grainy Polaroids to the cops and say, please do something about this, then you're correct. And that is how we got the first iconic images of the Florida skunk ape. What is a skunk ape, you ask? Shut that pretty mouth and I'll tell you. The skunk ape is basically a subspecies of Bigfoot with terrible hygiene. But the skunk ape's territory is not confined to Florida. It spans the entire southeastern United States. The jury's gonna be out as to whether this thing is real or not, but some recent evidence, such as the 2013 footage from Mississippi, for example, which we'll cover in a bit, is unsettling enough to give even a seasoned skeptic pause. So settle in and light several scented candles. This is the odious odyssey of the Florida skunk ape. The legend of the skunk ape doesn't begin in 2000. It goes back hundreds of years to indigenous lore that speaks of a tall man of the swamps, a mythical being that guards the glades and is said to be able to disappear at will. Modern accounts begin in the 40s, like the Florida driver who was an apparent victim of a skunk ape carjacking, or in 1957 when hunters in Big Cypress Swamp were said to have been invaded by a smelly creature. But the real breakout came in the 60s and 70s when land development began really ramping up and a spree of skunk ape sightings made headlines. A lot of weird shit happened in the 70s around this monster. Drivers of the still wild Florida roads kept running into them, and they were described as being too human to be a bear and too hairy to be a man. Nobody tell them about the Italians. And then in the summer of 77, Key Largo residents claimed that a massive furry creature that stunk like a dirty wet dog was stalking them and screaming in the mangroves. And witnesses always described the same signature stench: rotting eggs, wet dog, and roadkill. Don't you hate it when you get a great take and you just forget to hit the record button on OBS? The boom of StinkApe sightings in the 70s was followed by 2 decades of relative quiet, but the lore still persisted. In 97, tour operators out of the Everglades claimed that they saw a 7-foot-tall, red-haired creature skulking about faded areas along their tour routes, and multiple guides and guests also reported this same creature. A few months later in Okeechobee, a fire chief filmed what he called a skunk ape traversing shallow waters and disappearing into the tall grasses. And then, of course, comes the legendary and infamous Myakka photos out of Sarasota. Genuine or hoax, the photos reignited the debate around the skunk ape. Could it be an escaped orangutan? I mean, certainly Florida has its fair share of crazy people who own exotic animals and let them loose in the swamp. That's how we got the boa constrictor epidemic. But also, why do sightings seem to follow a cyclical pattern? It seems like every 20 years or so, or roughly every generation, there is a new outbreak of sighting. It could mean that there's a new generation of hoaxers, or a new generation of skunk ape. So what do we know about the skunk ape? What is its physiology? How does it behave? And why is it so goddamn stinky? Well, reports have it being anywhere from 6 feet tall to 9 feet tall, black bear brown to a ruddy red. The color variation of the skunk ape would help it blend into its natural surroundings during the wet season and the dry season. But why is it so smelly? It does live in a very swampy, humid region. It could have some symbiotic relationship with a bacteria or fungus, which would give it that pungent signature scent. Putrid scent could be a way to mark territory. It could be a way to communicate to others of its kind, like dogs and cats communicate through rubbing their pheromones and oils and whatnot on surfaces. Or it could just be a quirk of biology. Some of us just smell, okay? Jesus. Don't look at me. I use the Sydney Sweeney soap.
Gross.
We know that it's partially aquatic, and we know that it's an omnivore because it has stolen apples and corn in the past. So the skunk ape is not unlike its northern cousins, the Sasquatch and the Yeti, in that it's very shy and elusive. But there are times when it has become very aggressive. In the 1970s in Palm Beach County, 2 deputies by the name of Martin Lewis and Ernie Miller reported being stalked by what they believed to be a skunk ape, and they even fired rounds at it. In 1974 in Pembroke Pines, a driver apparently hit one with his car. And allegedly, a police officer later on described that creature as posturing to threaten him before running back into the woods. And in 1977 in Key Largo, the Stokeman family did mention a 6 to 9 foot creature who stalked them menacingly for days on end. And there are other anecdotal reports of intimidation, tree shaking, rock throwing, howling, ear-piercing screams, heavy stomping or breaking branches, which are classic Bigfoot signs of intimidation. And it should be noted that these seem like more warning type displays than anything else, like a gorilla beating its chest. There are no documented cases of the skunk ape attacking humans or animals. Really, the skunk ape is no more aggressive than like a black bear. But it might scream and throw a couple of rocks your way before it flees into the swamps. But as much as we'd all like to blame Florida for the skunk ape, it is not solely a Florida problem. Sightings of the skunk ape have flourished across the southeastern United States. And one of the most watched and most referenced videos, the High Cliff video, comes from Mississippi. Dark bipedal figure appears to rip apart a tree with extreme strength, and then stands upright, causing the cameraman to jump scare away through the woods. Look at him go get after that tree bark. Oh, that's a good skunk ape. That's either a genuine fear response or a clever way to conceal the hoax. This video is a Rorschach test. If you're a believer, you think it's the greatest footage ever. Skeptic, you think that there's no other corroborating claims, and in Occam's razor, it's either a bear or its doctor, or like an escaped chimpanzee or something. But it has not been formally debunked, nor has it been formally acclaimed. Reports of the skunk ape run the gamut from Georgia to Mississippi, from Alabama to South Carolina. Something big, hairy, and ripe appears to be out there. Even my home state of Maryland, so close to DC and the Goatman and the Snallygaster, has a skunk ape, or at least a creature that is skunk ape adjacent. Maybe there is some truth to that seminal legend of the tall man of the swamp, the ecological guardian who's able to blink in and out of existence, an interdimensional ape that likes corn and apples. We don't know what we don't know, and I'll keep an open mind about it too. And if I smell sulfur in the woods, I'll get my camera out because I really need the views. It is rough out here. So if you liked this video, consider giving me a like and subbing to the channel. Hit the bell, send me your credit card information. I'm Goblinsburg, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. StinkApe, StinkApe, when will that smell all disappear? StinkApe, StinkApe, why do you smell like dying